Yo guys, what's up? I am back with something that's not been seen on this channel in a long time, and that is ACC gameplay. I think probably the last time I uploaded any ACC gameplay was like a video where I said, "Oh, this was my first race," or something like that, and it did not go well. It didn't go well at all. But I have played the game quite a bit more since then. I'm on the PS5 version. I can't remember if I was on the PS5 version back then, but I don't think I was. I'm pretty sure the PS5 update had still not come out. But I am on the PS5 version. I have played a lot more. I think I'm probably a better driver than I was at that point, too. So a lot of things have changed. I think you'll probably see that my driving is a little bit better. And the safety rating is going up as I play more and kind of farm a little bit of safety rating against the AI. And my ultimate goal is probably keep playing this, but also try to get on some competition servers, maybe, if there are any that are populated in the game. I haven't actually unlocked the competition servers yet because I think you have to have 99 track rating, which, as you can see, mine's 83. And I think the safety rating is like 70 or something like that. So neither one of those I don't think I'll have any problem getting. I just have never driven some of the tracks. And again, you know, your safety rating, you got to build up, obviously. So both of those are getting better, will be better down the road. But what we have right now is a little bit of career mode gameplay. This is the last race of a weekend at Brands Hatch. 20 minutes. I am in a McLaren. And I really like the McLarens. They feel probably the most stable and the most comfortable to me. Some of the other cars as well I've enjoyed, like maybe the Mercedes I like pretty well. I'm not a big fan of the Lamborghinis, but they just feel uncomfortable. But I do love the McLarens. And in this race specifically, you saw I started second place. That was my qualifying position. And I got a really good start off the line, managed to take first place very quickly going into T1 and kept it. So I'm first place all the way up to this point of the race. And we go into the pits here. You see me fast forward a little bit through the pits just because it's boring, but you also may see that it takes a long time for me to get up on the blocks. And then after I get off the blocks, it feels like it takes forever for me to get the car started and driving again. And as I exit the pit lane, I'm phasing in and out of this car behind me, which is unfortunate, but it's the way it goes. And you'll see I do manage to get in front of him. And you'll also see that the three cars in front of me are all Lamborghinis, and I'm in fourth place. My hope is that after I run this lap, that that the cars in front of me the two that haven't pitted, my hope is that they will come out of the pits behind me and I'll be P2 without any real work, and I can go after catching up with this guy up here. But what actually happens is both of those guys come out of the pits ahead of me, so I'm still P4. But the good news is they're fresh out of the pits, not going very fast. Tires are cold. I managed to make a pass on this first one here going into that turn, and it looks like I'm going to have no problem keeping that that pass locked up. So I am P3. I am on the podium. There's a lot of wood left to chop. I've got seven and a half minutes ish, which probably will equate to like 4 or 5 laps if I had to guess. And at this point, it's just going to be trying to chase down these guys in front of me and see if I can get a little P1 here. And it's disappointing to kind of have to work for it this much, because I was P1 before we went into the pits, which is again, it's just kind of a bummer to then come out of the pits P4 and not get either of those places back. So I was overcut a bit, but also it just seems like it takes me a long time to get into the pit and then get to the point where they're working on my car and then exiting my pit box as well. And I think part of that is the fact that I have the start. So what are the buttons? Start the engine and ignition, maybe, I think is the other one. I have those on automatic, and I think that's probably a little slower than just doing it myself. So maybe something to look into. But also, it just seems like the AI, it seems like the second they can just stop in their boxes, and the second they're in their boxes, they're getting lifted up. Whereas it feels like with me, I stop in my box. I thought about going for that move right there, but ended up not doing it. Probably good to be smart there. Just keep it smart. Don't be stupid. But again, the AI just so fast. They get in their spot. They're up on the blocks, and then that when they finish, they just go. With me, it's more like I stop in my spot. I wait like a second, 2 seconds, get lifted up onto my blocks. They do their 30 seconds of work, and then they drop me, and I'm not immediately going. Whereas it feels like the AI is just immediately going. So that's what I've noticed probably the most in this career mode. I mean, I've done like 3 or 4 race weekends, I think, at this point, or this is the second race weekend maybe. Yeah, I think we had Zolder first, and then I guess Brands Hatch is the second full race weekend. I'm not positive about that, but that sounds right. But what I've noticed is that I get much slower pit stops than pretty much everyone else on the track. And the only times when I really have a great sort of outcome from pit stops is when I go into the pits over probably 2.5 seconds in front of the person behind me. Actually, the race before this one, I didn't show it to you just because it was kind of boring from a race perspective. I got P1 and there were no overtakes. So I, in that race, went into the pits probably 2.5 seconds ahead of the guy behind me. And here we go. Can I get this pass done? Yes, I get past him, but it looks like he may get the switchback, but he's just not as fast out of the corner. I get a pretty good exit, and he drops back. So that's P2 in the bag. Now I just got to go after this guy in first, and also don't make any mistakes and let the guy behind me catch me again. So I feel like I'm in a pretty good position here. But anyway, as I was saying, the last race, I was like 2.5 seconds ahead of the guy behind me, and we came out of the pits very close to each other, but I was still ahead. So we came out of the pits and probably had a 0.1 gap, 0.2 gap, something like that. And I managed to get the win. And I do think it was good driving. It just probably wasn't really that interesting from a viewer perspective. And that's kind of how I'm been approaching this. I'm not trying to do custom races and set up some specific scenario or something like that. What I'm really doing is just sort of going through this career mode that I'm doing and just filming the races. And then if it ends up being an interesting race that you can watch and enjoy, then I'll show you. If it's not something that you can enjoy, or I do poorly and again it's not interesting, then I just won't show it. I mean, I would be fine showing a video where I have some poor moments but make the most of the race, as I do think kind of this one is, right? Like, I took too long in the pits, but I think it's been a pretty interesting race to watch, at least the second half, the second stint. The first stint was not that interesting, to be quite honest with you, outside of me making a couple of mistakes that let the AI sort of catch up to me a bit. But for the most part, I think the second stint has been much more interesting from a viewer perspective. So I hope that the viewer agrees as well. But I am starting to get a little worried at this point in the race. I have the fastest lap of the session, but I'm about 1.5 seconds behind this Lamborghini in front of me, and I'm kind of struggling with the tires a little bit. I feel like the tires have really dropped away from me, and you see there that I make a mistake and just go too wide into that turn. And to be honest with you, internally that happened, and I thought, okay, this race is probably over. I don't think I'm going to be able to catch this guy after making a mistake like that, because at this point in the race, we've got roughly 1.5 laps left, just based on the time. We got 1:20 left, so we'll finish this lap and start another one. But 1.5 seconds is a pretty big lead for me to make up on this guy, just based on the speed that he's driving. I think he's driving faster than I am. He's getting better pace, although I think I have a faster lap in the race. I think overall he's got better pace than I do. So I'm not stupid. I know that I have my work cut out for me here. And I'm also a little conscious of the fact that if I mess up, it's essentially a race ruined, right? I mean, I'd rather get a P2 here than Bennett and lose 12 spaces in 10 seconds. So I have a little bit of that to think about. And I've done my fair share of that kind of stuff in ACC since I've gotten back into playing it a little bit more. I mean, it's I historically have played the F1 games the most, which if you're a viewer, you probably know that. But The ACC games, of course, are just a little different feel. Just when you've got non F1 cars and you're driving the GT3 stuff, it's just a different feel. And then, of course, ACC is a different beast from the F1 games, right? If you've ever played both of them, you know that they're substantially different. So a lot of differences here, and it has been a little tough to get used to in places, but I do think largely that I've been able to kind of carry over just driving ability and general consistency, and there's been some fine-tuning, of course, but overall, I do think that I'm racing okay, and most importantly, I'm having fun, right? That's what it's all about, is just enjoy what you're doing, and if you are, then great, go for it, right? But you see us come across the line here. I finished roughly 3.2 seconds behind the guy in front of me, and I did let off for most of that ending lap. So, or not most of the ending lap. I'd say probably the last third of the lap. He took another second and a half ahead of me. So, great result here. I thought it was really fun fighting back against these Lamborghinis, fighting back from P4 to ultimately get P2. A race I'm happy with, race I'm proud of. Stay tuned for more.